What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About the League. I'm Chris Wallace, joined by Team Phoenix's Great Beard of Odin and a surprise guest, Gregorsaurus Rex from Option 12. I swear to God, neither of y'all had better even think about interrupting each other. Just want to say right off the bat, because I'm sure y'all have noticed, Commissioner Sigtau Infinite is unfortunately MIA at the moment. So thank you to Gregorsaurus for stepping in at the 11th hour, and to Ace, who is streaming this for us very generously with his time. So just to kick things off right away, we had an interesting week 2, I would say. A lot of exciting games, a lot of unexpected results, at least in my opinion. So let's just start off. We'll go in order. White Wolf versus Option 12. That was our first matchup. I'm going to start with you, Greg, since you played in this series. What were your takeaways from it?
So White Wolf is a very interesting team, is what I took away from it. They are, without being overly critical of them, they are inconsistent. When they are firing on all cylinders, they are exceptionally scary, as goes to show from the first game. And when they are not, they kind of fall on their face as it goes from the second game. And as if I recall correctly, that's the same sort of thing that happened in the first week as well. I think there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account when a team plays against them, perhaps more than we had initially prepared for. So I guess that's your warning to those of you who haven't played them yet. They are a force to be reckoned with if they are on their A game.
And was there anything in particular that you guys learned from game 1 that you feel helped you in game 2, or do you think it was just that inconsistency that you cited?
There were a few things that we identified that we should change up for game 2. I'm not going to go into too much detail on them because it's sort of trade secrets, but there were definitely some things that we learned, and that's why we were able to adapt and come away with the win in the second game.
All right. How about you, Odin? Was there anything particular about this series that jumped out at you just as an observer?
Yeah, I think it was just these games really came down to better drafts. In each game, each team's respective teams won. I guess in the first game, Option 12, they kind of just didn't give themselves enough win conditions. They kind of put all of their eggs in the ADC to carry, and just had 3 tanks, and they just couldn't deal enough damage in fights, and that's why they pretty much end up losing pretty much every extended fight. Is they just didn't have enough damage dealers, with the 3 tanks, and then in game 2, it's again they ended up losing that game. I think solely in the draft pick. I don't think the Senna was the right pick in the bot lane. They should have given something a little more engaged, and I think that would have helped White Wolf. And then again, Option 12 obviously responding correctly and bringing a little more damage out this time from the jungle. I think this would really tip the scales back into their favors, having that real another big source of damage to go along with their tanks.
All right. Well, for what it's worth, the Holy Coin last week did predict a 1-1, and it was Chaosix, who was our guest last week, who was the only one who got it right. Both Jareth and I picked Option 12. So I am 0 for 2 when it comes to picking results of Option 12 matches. Now, just going off of that, looking ahead for both of these teams, and I'll start with you, Rudy. From what we've seen from White Wolf, and we heard Greg talk about this earlier with some potential inconsistency, if you had to label them as either a real contender or a pretender, which one are they right now?
I'm calling them just middle of the pack. They are that inconsistent team, but I do think they have some pretty clear spots that a team could target and really beat them down. They are a very top-side focused team, and I think there's plenty of room to punish them, but I do think they are on that up and up, but I don't think they're going to be like that, that number 1 top tier team that is dominating, leading the league. I think they're just going to be sitting around in the middle of that pack, mostly having 1-1 weeks.
All right. What about you, Greg? How do you feel about them between those two?
I feel like they have the potential to be a contender, but I think it really will come down to how much that they really hone in on the things that they are strong at. I feel like there could be more like holistic team practice going on. That probably is. I know there are some of their team members who don't really play. I haven't seen them playing as a group of 5 unless they're playing on alternate accounts too much, because we like to do our scouting. So if they start doing that and really start gelling as a whole team, a full 5 team, they could be very scary.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then for option 12, looking ahead, at least in my opinion, it seems like there's a very large amount of champions that you feel compelled to ban against this roster. And I'll start with you, Greg. Looking at your own team, and I know that you might not want to give away too much information, but I think a lot of this is pretty common knowledge at this point. If you were playing against yourself, what would your first 3 bans be?
Well, the first 2 would be what everyone seems to ban, which is Yi and Morg. It's just too powerful as far as the Master Yi. Fowler is a monster, and we all know that, so we can't let him do that. As far as the Morgana goes, it's not just me in the mid lane. Obviously, Elizabeth plays it in the support role. If it's a weird jungler, Prowler's probably played it in jungles, so there's that as well. It's just too strong of a flex against us. The third pick really comes down to whatever you feel is the scariest at the time. That might be, something out of the support role. That could be trying to pinch the mid pool more. That could be trying to focus in on Eternal in the top lane. It really comes down to where the team playing against option 12 feels they can get the most benefit out of it.
What about you, Rudy? When you guys
this
play
is
option
easy.
12, what are you thinking?
First 2 bans easy. Morg, Lux. They're 2 basic champions. They don't really require much to play. They're pretty simple mechanically, and they're just super strong picks right now. Especially in like this elo, these champions really excel. And they really kind of shut it down with the shields and the stuns. And then Master Yi, for the last one, it's one of those champions where it's you hate having to ban it, but it's one of those things where if it gets 1 or 2 kills, it just can take over a game. Especially if you're a team who's not working together well with your CC chains, he can just basically 1v9 if he just gets even a little bit of a lead, or if he's just kind of left alone to farm until a late game.
All right. So moving on, gonna wrap up our conversation on White Wolf and option 12. Northern Storm put together another pretty impressive 2-0. So they are now perched alone atop the standings as they took down Blitzkrieg. Rudy, Odin, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, so first, I think Northern Storm is looking obviously like the team to beat right now. But with that said, I think these games were very winnable by Blitzkrieg with a couple of changes. I guess, so looking at that first game, I think all they needed to do really was change out the Samara for more of a traditional backline ADC. You have a big, beefy front line. Just get a normal ADC with that Cassiopeia back there and just melt through them. They only had 1 real damage source. In the other main damage dealer was I think the Zillion, and that was really it. It was all basically up to the ADC to be pumping out damage on Northern Storm. So I think they win that game. And then, for the love of God, they need to stabilize top lane. That is a freaking train wreck right now. I don't know. They need to put him on Darien duty or something. Just get him something where he's going to be on that provides some kind of utility for the team, and that he can just farm up and be useful later in the game. Because right now he is just beating over kills and does not know how to build his champions. Someone teach this guy how to build. It is driving me nuts.
All right, so some strong words coming out right there. For you, Greg, what about you?
So I'm going to touch quickly on something that Odin had mentioned. I'm going to go a little less aggressive about it, but as it's going to show, he referenced Darien. Eternal's a very good example of this as well. The LCUS does not care what your rank is. Solo queue is solo queue. That doesn't matter here. What matters here is how you play, and if you play for the team. You can be down 50, 100 CS. You can get Flame Horizon. If you play the way you're supposed to play in the team fights, you will be significantly more impactful than if you try to hard carry 1v9 and succeed or don't succeed. As far as the matchup specifically between Blitzkrieg and Northern Storm, Northern Storm is obviously, as Rudy said, the team to beat. They're scary. I will say that just listening to their players talk, I also think that they might be a little bit on the arrogant side. So I'm assuming that eventually, if they do lose a game, they'll get knocked down a peg and maybe be a bit more humble. As far as Blitzkrieg goes, they have all the pieces to win these. They have had standout performances on multiple players on their team. It's just a matter of getting it to gel. I don't know if that just means more practice. I don't know if that's actually like coming up with specified comps that you want to work off of. I don't know what their practice looks like. But to me, it seems like despite the fact that they are winless right now, that they have the potential to be significantly higher in the standings than they are, and I would hope to see them climb as the weeks go on and as more time gets put in.
Yeah, not that. I think their way to win it right here. They may not. They just need to stabilize the game, slow it down, don't let any lanes snowball, and wait till those team fights and let Ace do what he does best, and that's the macro game. Let him command the troops, play for that 5v5 team fight, and not give over kills early in the game for no reason. And just let Ace command the team towards objectives and out macro the other teams. That's the reason why Ace has been in pretty much every single championship game, is because he's probably the best macro player in the league right now. He's it's probably the most underrated thing on a team. People consider those early standings as the shot callers, and Ace is probably one of the best shot callers in our league right now. And just let him command. Don't make the job harder. Just stabilize your lane, get to those team fights, and then just listen to the calls.
Now you touched on this just now. I've seen specifically that it seems to be the mid game where Blitzkrieg is really faltering. Both games this week, they were doing just fine against Northern Storm the first 10, 15 minutes or so, and then it all fell apart. Is there anything in particular that you're seeing them do in that period of the game that you would point to as the main issue?
I'd have to go rewatch it. I just remember taking fights that you don't need. I guess I know you're just. I keep saying spots where you're getting soul killed in areas where there's, why are you fighting right here? There's nothing to fight over. Just take the farm. Don't be engaging especially when you're down. When you're 0-6, there's no reason to be fighting for nothing. And like the bot lane numbers seeing that they're engaging on the Ornn, you're not at this point in the game. You're not 1v1ing an Ornn who's an assassin. Let's be honest. Ornn's not a tank. He's an assassin. Just don't be fighting that right now. You just need to be farming up, and you just see these engages when you're super far behind and trying to force something. When you're trying to force stuff, you're just going to keep falling down, and you just got to wait for those later games, like waiting for when your team comp is right, and you just keep trying to make force fights, and that's, I think, the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Anything to add on that, Greg?
To branch off of that, in addition to forcing fights or taking fights that you can't win, it's a bit of getting picked as well. I'm not going to call out specific people, but there'll be times where they'll just running through a lane or running through the jungle and get picked off by 2 to 3 players on the enemy team that are just waiting for them. And I think that leads to perhaps the bigger issue that they have been encountering, which is it may be tilt, to be honest. The further behind you fall and the more things don't go right, the more likely you are to become tilted, and that can become increasingly problematic as the game drags on.
Indeed. Now, Greg, you already touched on this, so I'm just going to ask Odin this one for the purposes of moving things along. Do you feel that Northern Storm has shown us enough at this point to be considered the top dog?
I think right now, yes. They do have spots I think that a team can exploit. I'm not going to share them because obviously I don't want them to fix those, but I do think that there are potentials to exploit them. But they are looking very solid right now, and then they are playing very well together. I think that's the biggest thing. It seems like they do have someone calling shots for them, and they are all rotating towards those calls and working as a team.
All right.
And jump in real quick. I just do want to call one thing out, which is part of they are 4-0 right now, but part of that could be strength of schedule. Not to downplay any of the teams, but the teams that are having the most inconsistent performances or difficult times are the teams that they've played first. So as their schedule ramps up, it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain this momentum.
Sure. All right. So our last series from this past week was 9 Lives against your very own Phoenix, Odin. So I will actually start with Gregorsaurus on this one. What were your thoughts from this series?
I was pleasantly surprised at how well 9 Lives got back on their feet after week 1. The way that they lost the first 2 games in the first week was probably difficult to handle, I'm sure. But then the way that they snapped back and they played both of these games quite well, I was very impressed at their performance.
What specifically impressed you the most? Was there a specific player, a specific way they were rotating, anything like that?
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Wally. Obviously, Wally is a force to be reckoned with in the bot lane. He's probably the best AD carry that's in this current split. I also think that this was a very good example of the synergy with Slack and with the rest of his team. The first week, I felt like he did get some good ganks off, but it wasn't nearly as effective as it was this week, and that's really goes to show why they did better this time around, I think.
All right. Odin, you were there. Tell us what you think.
Oh, we're just bad. So right now, but no, for real, right now, I think it comes down to two really big issues. It's right now we're 5 players all on 5 different pages. The real issue we were having right now is, we don't have a time where all 5 of us really can get together and actually play. And I think that's a pretty important thing when you're playing 5-man competitive, is actually finding that time to actually practice as a team. Because right now we can only get like a couple of games in before the series starts, and it's really hard to try to pull in 5 different perspectives in 2 to 3 games of practice time. And then the other big issue, I think, is actually my own individual performance. I feel like I am playing absolutely terrible. I don't think I've had a good game yet this split. And it's kind of a disappointing switch to mid right now. Right now, I just feel like I am horribly underperforming, and it's really holding back my team.
If you're up for some friendly ribbing, have you heard of control mages? Have you tried?
I'm sorry. I actually like to have fun when I play the game. Okay, I like
you have more
champions
fun
that require a little more skill than Morgana.
More fun when you win.
Gentlemen, we said no interrupting.
Hey, okay. I actually like to push my limits and try something that has mechanics to it and not just point click.
So, Gregosaurus, from the outside looking in, since we heard Odin's thoughts, obviously, very candid, appreciate that. Phoenix, it seems to me like they are a team that doesn't really have an identity. What do you think their identity should be moving forward? What do you think would be optimal for them?
Honestly, I don't know for certain, because I don't know for certain what all of their players excel at, but I think the biggest thing is what Odin already touched on, which is however you can get the team together and figure out what the heck that is, figure out what everybody's good at, and then put something together off of that, because as it stands now, it feels like everybody's just like kind of falling back onto comfort into comps that aren't particularly synergist, and then things just kind of fall apart as the game goes on.
All right. Well, moving along now, that wraps up our recaps of last week's games. We're going to touch a little bit on the current patch. There haven't really been many changes since last week. Actually, I don't think there have been any. But we did see our first Samira in the LCUS this past week. Didn't really excel. I'll start with you, Gregosaurus. What are your thoughts on that particular performance by Shugo Tenshi, or just the champion in general from your own experiences so far?
So, having played against a bunch of Samiras, and then having played against a bunch of Samiras after the hotfix, she, if left unchecked, is terrifying. And I feel like Shugo actually did quite well on it. If memory serves, let me double check here. He ended up with a pretty good scoreline. It was like, I think he got 10 kills or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the issue that she has is she does have a dash, but if you lock her down, then she can't really get all of her damage off. And that's sort of an obvious statement for any AD carry. But that combined with the fact that in order to really get her combo up, you need to be really close to the enemies, and then all it really takes is the enemy team playing something that can, crowd control you, and you die. I feel like the champion is probably a bit more of a solo queue star rather than a organized team play star, but Worlds is going on, so I'm sure I'll be proven wrong.
What about you, Odin?
Yeah, so she's definitely a feast or famine type champion, where if she gets ahead, she is terrifying. But if she's not getting those early kills and starting to snowball, she's just kind of, okay, whatever, you're there, you're just going to blow up real quickly, because she's an ADC trying to be an assassin, and we all know how ADCs are this meta, and if they're not ahead, they just explode. So diving in when she's not having that snowball lead, she's not really relevant because she gets deleted right away. As far as that game went, again, I think she'll be fine in this league. She just didn't have the right team comp, I think, to really benefited her, and she wasn't really playing into the right team. Like I said, in that her debut, I think a different ADC would have been a better option. But I definitely could see her popping off in some of these games.
Yeah, I suppose actually to play off of that, if you put her with a support that can really emphasize it, Morgana, if she ever gets through the ban phase, a Lulu, a Janna, something like that, where she won't just get instantly blown up, it could be really, really effective. The Samira that we saw was with a Nautilus, which, while that may work in lane, that's not going to work for Peel or for keeping her alive in team fights.
All right, sounds good. Moving on, we got week 3 coming up, obviously, seeing as how week 2 was last week. Our first matchup will be Northern Storm, the undefeated Northern Storm, against Team Phoenix. Odin, I'll start with you. What it looks like you've picked Northern Storm. Actually, you picked against yourself here.
Oh yeah, we won't win. And if we don't figure out a way to solve our issues right now, we won't win a game this split. Right now we're too far off the same page, and until we address these issues, we won't win. But I do think, if we can, pull our team together, I do think we can be scary. It's just getting that point first, and I'm not sure if we'll be there by this Sunday or not, but I guess we'll see. Obviously, I want to win, but right as things stands right now, until things get fixed, we just simply won't.
What about you, Greg?
So rather than answer that straight away, I do want to ask Odin a question. How do you feel about subbing Brandana for Stelio? Do you think that will help, hurt?
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's not like we're on the same page with Brandana right now, so it's it's gonna be something another player right now who's on probably another different page, so it's gonna be probably the same as been the past 2 weeks. But who knows? Maybe he turns out to be a really good shot caller who just pulls us all together, and we're able to sneak a couple wins against them. We haven't had a chance to practice with them at all yet, so I don't know what his champ pool is. So I guess we'll see what we can piece together. Obviously, I'm hoping things go well, but you never really know until you get to the game, and hopefully everyone shows up and has a good performance. I know I've talked to every player on our team. They're all pretty much disappointed with their own individual performance. I think it goes across the board that none of us are pretty happy with how we've been playing.
All right, so your thoughts on this particular series, Greg?
As much as I believe in the underdogs, I think this probably will go Northern Storm's way. I do think that Northern Storm has exploitable weaknesses. I do think that it's very unlikely they're going undefeated all split. They have a lot of scary teams to play with yet. Just from what I have heard and from what I've seen of Team Phoenix and where they're at right now, if they were in prime form and we're on the same page, this could be a very close matchup. But as it stands, yeah, it's probably going to be Northern Storm.
All right, and just for the record, I as well am backing Northern Storm for this particular series. Moving on to set 2, White Wolf Gaming and Team Blitzkrieg. I'll start with you this time, Gregosaurus. Who you got in this one?
I have no idea, man. White Wolf is all over the board. Primarily, as Odin said, it's their gameplay is actually usually not what trips them up. It's usually their pick ban. It is inconsistent. Like, I don't know why they picked and banned some of the things they did in game 2 against us. Similarly, Blitzkrieg, like, their drafts are a little less worrisome to me, but their play in the game is all over the board. So I don't have any idea, so I guess I have to go 1-1.
All right. How about you, Odin?
So I'm going 1-1 if they can, get some things fixed, stabilize. I'm gonna harp on this, stabilize the top side, and then let Shugo and Ace be doing the carrying and just peel for them. And I think they should be able to sneak a win off of White Wolf.
All right. Well, I'm actually the only one. I am backing White Wolf to go 2-0 in this one. I think they look cohesive and solid, and I think with Blitzkrieg, there's just so many questions still. Last one of the night will be Option 12 on the blue side, taking on 9 Lives, not on the blue side. The sheet is just color-coded, strangely. My bad, everybody. Both teams get one game on each side. Odin, we'll start with you. How do you see this series playing out?
I think it's gonna be Option 12. Simply the fact that I typically see them as a team practicing more often, and for me, it's just a sign that they're looking more prepared. I don't usually see the 9 Lives players playing together as 5 all too often. Whereas every time I log on, it always seems like there's 3-4 option 12 players all in the same game every single day. So it just kind of goes to that whole idea of that, it looks like they're putting a lot more time to prepare for these matches than Nine Lives. So that's why I'm giving them the 2-0.
Gregosaurus, you gonna pick against yourself like Odin?
Absolutely not. First and foremost, I'd like to emphasize that this is, whether or not there's anything on the line, this is Dino Battle 2.0. This is Gregosaurus versus Trufflesaurus and Slackosaurus. And those of you who've been around for a while, you remember how Dino Battle 1 went. So it's going to be the same thing. I'm friends with Truffle, so I can say this safely. It's a mid-gap. It's going to be a mid-gap.
All right, sounds good. Well, I also am backing option 12 to 2-0 this one, but I've been wrong about both option 12 series so far, so maybe not a great omen. Well, that wraps up our preview of this coming week. I do have a few questions that I want to ask you guys while I have you both here. Have you, and I understand that you might not want to reveal your findings, but if you could give me at least a little inkling, a little tidbit, have you started to notice any sort of meta within the LCUS? Teams following similar patterns, prioritizing similar picks, playing around the same win conditions?
Like it seems that every team just wants to play Morgana, and I don't know why. She's so boring. Learn something fun.
She gets wins. That's the thing.
All right. Anything else besides the Morgana, though? How about something besides a champion? How about an actual style of play that you've maybe noticed a pattern?
It seems like teams are more playing more for that team fight. It doesn't seem like teams are really willing to risk for going for those more early game snowball-y type comps. Everyone is just kind of more seems to be trying to play it safe and trying to go towards that 5v5 team fight, farm it up, instead of going for that more explosive early game, trying to snowball and close out early.
Anything to add, Gregosaurus?
So I will say that the meta for LCUS historically, and I'm going to speak specifically to the mid lane, because I feel like there actually has been a decent variety of different things being played in other positions, especially if you just look at Prowler's weird champion pool, and who knows what he's playing next. But mid lane, historically, it's always been a lot of control mages. You look at the Liz Marcuses, you look at the Aces. There's a lot of the same sort of control mages that don't really do much else besides just farm and then team fight. But I feel like this split has been actually kind of different. We've seen a wide variety of things. We've seen certainly some control mages, but there was some Zoes going around. I know Von Hohenheim was doing that before. There was some, there was a LeBlanc, I believe. Like it's been an interesting collection of champions, and I feel like it's a more diverse pool now than there was in the past.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm just gonna follow up with one more question because I think we're running a little long here tonight. I was doing some digging, and these numbers are according to op.gg. So if I end up being wrong, well, it's their fault. I can only go with what my source gives me. But I was tallying up how many times each team has been playing together since teams were announced. I know this is something that Odin, you specifically touched on quite a bit already. And I just want to ask you guys just, first of all, let me say that these numbers pertain to if a team had at least 4 of the 5 members playing together, because I know all 5 is tough. I think 4 out of 5 is close enough that you are able to play your team strategy for the most part. So for you guys, first of all, I want you each to guess, who do you think has played the most games, at least 4 out of 5, since teams were announced 3 weeks ago?
Option 12.
Greg?
It's probably us. It could actually possibly be Blitzkrieg as well. Possibly Phoenix.
And who do you think has played the least games together?
I'm going to go with Phoenix.
Well, I don't think was it 3 people or 4 people?
At least 4.
Oh, not Phoenix. Yeah, probably Phoenix.
I'm fairly confident we're last.
Phoenix and possibly 9 Lives would be my guesses.
All right. Well, actually, you were both correct about option 12. Option 12, since teams were announced September 8th, y'all have played, at least 4 people on the team have played 45 games together, not counting official LCUS matches, in about the 3 weeks and change since then. Actually, it's Northern Storm that has played the least games of at least 4 people together, with only 12. After that, 9 Lives has 13, unless someone named Lindsay Stobinski is somebody's Smurf, because there was like 20 of those. And then we got Phoenix at 14, so a real cluster down there at the bottom. Then White Wolf. Then White Wolf, then Blitzkrieg, and then option 12 at the top. For you guys, are there any surprises there? I personally feel like the Northern Storm number is a bit of a surprise, but you guys are the players. I want to hear what you have to say.
I guess, yeah, it is a little surprising with the whole Northern Storm one, but, at the same time, if that team has a really good shot caller, that's, I think, the most underrated thing in the league. If a team has a good shot caller, they can take a bunch of average players and make them really great, and be able to beat a team with a bunch of great players who don't have any clear direction. Shot callers make and break teams, and that can easily make up for lack of practice.
All right, what about you, Greg? Any surprises?
Oddly enough, Northern Storm not practicing together as much doesn't surprise me. It's very easy to write off practicing when you're winning games. And again, I think a lot of that plays into strength of schedule. I think that once they start losing games, which I suspect they will sooner rather than later, they will probably start ramping up their practice just because they realize that they're not an invincible team.
All right. Well, that wraps up everything that I wanted to quiz you two on tonight. I'll start with you, Odin. Any closing thoughts?
I'm just hoping at some point we can get all of our pieces all on the same page, and if we do, God help the team that we do it against, because I think we will be really tough, and I think every team should just hope that we just don't find a way to click, because if we do, they're in trouble.
All right. How about you, Gregosaurus?
Option 12 won split 2 and split 4, so it's an even number, so we're just going to win. Just give up now.
All right. Not lacking for confidence. Well, thank you both for joining me tonight. Especially thank you to Gregosaurus on literally the last second for hopping in here. Thank you all for listening to the 3rd episode of Let's Talk About the League, and make sure you tune in Sunday for week 3. We'll be kicking off with Northern Storm versus Team Phoenix. We'll see if Northern Storm can stay undefeated, or if Odin and his teammates can maybe start getting on track. Have a good night.
Fingers crossed. Woo.